Want to get back to our top story now. The White House trying to build support for a strike on Damascus, holding a classified briefing for lawmakers to present some of the evidence on Syria. My next guest was one of the 81 who attended. Ohio Congressman Bill Johnson, back home in his home state, Columbus, Ohio. And sir, good morning to you. I read a statement you gave out yesterday. Quote, "I left this briefing with more questions and concerns that I had when I arrived." How come?
Well, Bill, you know, considering the importance that the president placed on consulting with Congress, I was, first of all, very disappointed that neither the president nor the vice president nor any cabinet level official showed up at the briefing. I mean, this is a very, very critical decision that the president has to make. The use of military force in a situation where Americans are not directly threatened, that's a big decision, and it's a heavy burden on the president to convince the American people of its merits. And as I said, I left yesterday with more questions than answers because we don't see a coherent strategy in the Middle East. I mean, this is what happens when you lead from behind. The situation in Syria has gotten way out of control, and now here we are in a situation where our allies in the region don't trust us, and our adversaries don't respect us.
You said a lot there. Let's go one by one here. If the president or vice president had been there, would you feel differently today?
Well, I think you would see you might see a different attitude on the part of the members, and some of the questions that were asked to the ones that were there may have been answered more directly, because we have still yet to hear directly from the president what his overall Middle East strategy is and how he intends to deal with nations like Iran and its influence in what's happening in Syria, how he plans to deal with the Russians, who now sit on almost on the front lines in support of the Assad regime. There are lots of questions that the group there that was there yesterday simply could not answer because, as you've seen before, the president comes out and makes public statements and then leaves it to the staff to fill in the blanks. We need the president to come to Congress and tell us what he plans to do.
Did you ask these questions specifically on Sunday?
There were a number of questions asked about the overall policy and about what the objectives were. Remember, you know, when we put military force into play, we've got to ensure that we know that there is a national security risk or an American national interest at stake. We've got to know how we're going to get in, what we're going to accomplish while we're there, and more importantly almost is what are the conditions for us to get out, and how are we going to leave the place we've been. And then finally, do we have the support of the American people? Those are important questions, and I did not hear answers to those yesterday.
I'm going to talk about the evidence, and bear in mind this was a classified briefing, so you can only characterize it and not go into specifics. The evidence, how strong?
Well, you know, I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind. I mean, we've all seen it, even on the media. There is compelling evidence that the Syrians, someone has used chemical weapons against their own people. Whether this was Assad or whether it was the opposition, I think that question is still out there. But to some,
that is a significant statement, sir. And I apologize about stopping you on that, but you're not convinced that Assad carried out this attack, suggesting it might have been the other side?
I'm saying there are questions to some. I cannot go into the details of the evidence, of course, and what was presented. There is no question in my mind that Assad needs to go. He has been a state sponsor of terrorism for a long time. He has committed atrocities on his own people, and there's no question that he needs to go. So by no means am I suggesting that Assad is innocent in this.
Is your vote today a yes or a no?
Well, I've still got more work to do. We have not seen the final resolution that the president plans to place before Congress. You know, as you mentioned earlier in your show, he's going to be meeting with members of the Senate today, and there will be great debate and probably some amendments that come up. But right now, the president's got an uphill climb to convince me that military force is the right thing to do.
Did you feel that way before the statement on Saturday afternoon, or just after the briefing on Sunday?
Well, you know, Bill, I spent 26 and a half years in the Air Force, and I've been a commander. I know what it means, and I know the burden of that places on an authority to put our troops in harm's way. So I go into this very, very cautiously because our young people are a vital resource. And they're too valuable just to throw out there over some arbitrary red line statement.
Well, one more question here, sir. Based on what you know today, if you are given more direct evidence that Assad used chemical weapons, would the president get your support then?
Well, Bill, unfortunately, it goes back to those three questions. What is America's national security interest, and what are the risks to America at play?
Even if it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Assad gassed his own people?
Well, we've had chemical weapons attacks in the past. It happened with Iraq during the Iraq-Iran war back in the 80s. And there have been suspicions all along that Assad has been using chemical weapons in his own country. So the question is, what makes this latest incident different than those? And, you know, Bill, I am appalled at any time that innocent people are killed by bad leaders, but it's happening all over the world. Do we insert American forces each and every time? That would be a heavy lift.
I appreciate your time today, sir. We'll pick things up in Washington when you return to our nation's capital. Bill Johnson, representative from Ohio, on his reaction to the briefing that is classified from yesterday. Thank you. Viewers at home, the email is hemmer@foxnews.com. Also on Twitter, @BillHemmer. We're taking your questions right now online. BYA, because you asked.